We're on to week 7 in college football, so I'm here to present to you my college football top 25 along with my top 5 Heisman contenders. What's crack-a-lackin'? It's your boy Broshmo, just in case you did not know. So go ahead, become a bro and subscribe. Leave this video a thumbs up if you enjoy the content as always. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Prospect rankings. Hopefully I start getting that out this week. Perhaps, if not, it will start by the beginning of next week. But let's go ahead and get into it with my teams that just missed it. And I really should have put 6 teams here because I'm going to talk about Texas real quick because yours is back. It looked great. There's an argument to be made. This team could be undefeated if he never got hurt. Problem is, this win against Oklahoma, where they just smashed Oklahoma, would look a heck of a lot impressive if Oklahoma wasn't coming off a win again or a loss against Kansas State and then getting smashed by TCU. Oklahoma just looks like a disaster right now. So they're kind of an honorable mention here. I really did want to talk about them because there's a good case that we could see them move up. I think they got Iowa State next week. I guess I can go confirm that real quick. They have Iowa State next week. So again, I could see some of these teams in my top 25 maybe falling off as we get deeper into conference play. So I'm holding it back, but I'm really rooting for Texas. I'm a big fan of Bijan. Now, Illinois, Minnesota, that will be decided this week as they face off against one another. And both teams, one loss. And to be fair to Minnesota, they lost against Purdue a week ago without Mo Ibrahim. So I'm hoping this Minnesota team can come out against Illinois and at least make this a game. They are the current 3.5 point favorites. Illinois has looked pretty darn good throughout the season. So we'll see. I think one of these teams will sneak into the top 25. And we'll find out who in this game coming up this week. Coastal Carolina, they're undefeated, but I'm not sold on them. Really, they've been in this just missed it list for so long now, and it's just I'm just having a hard time buying into them. Just in general, like we could go take a look this past weekend. They had who did they have? They had Louisiana Monroe, and they got by them by a touchdown. Like I don't feel like this Coastal Carolina team's that good. So I don't know. They might be sticking around this just missed it list for quite a while. JMU though, another team undefeated. Not quite sold how good they are, but at least they're having more, I would say, dominant wins than Coastal Carolina. So it's good to see the Dukes here. And North Carolina, one loss this year against Notre Dame, and y'all beat Miami in a competitive game. Like we saw, Drake May? Who was their quarterback? Why am I blanking on his name right now? We saw him be a little bit more mistake prone this past week, and they were still able to get the dub, but I'm just not quite there yet when it comes to North Carolina, and I just feel like the teams I've currently included in my top 25, they're just a bit more impressive, though there's bigger matchups coming up. We'll see where they go from there. My fallers, I only got 2 fallers, so it was kind of hard to fit in a ton of new teams into the top 25. And if you don't know, I'm not that overreactionary when it comes to games. I try to sit and wait, especially with, again, bigger matchups coming up. But Arkansas and Washington were my fallers. Arkansas, they didn't have KJ Jefferson this game because of the concussion. If you keep in mind, they lost Jalen Catalon earlier on in the season. So yeah, it was rough. They weren't that competitive against Mississippi State. And then Washington, man, they got shocked by Arizona State. Rough. An Arizona State that fired their coach. Well, they came to terms to separate. But just a few weeks ago, so that was just a really bad loss for Arizona State. But let's go ahead and get into the top 25, starting at 21 through 25. Baylor, they didn't play anybody this week. They remain here at 25. It was hard to justify them getting booted out since they did literally no harm to their position. And though Cincinnati, though, they're a new team. Got 2 group of 5 teams now. Kind of, sort of. I mean, BYU is group of 5, but not because it's independent. But I got Cincinnati here. They haven't lost a game since the Arkansas game at the beginning of the year. And they had a rough time early on against South Florida. To be fair, South Florida almost beat Florida. But here they are, finally in the top 25 after being on my Just Missed It last week. BYU, tough loss against Notre Dame, man. I felt it coming on, like, because that defense was coming around for Notre Dame. The quarterback play has been a lot more stable there for the Fighting Irish. And BYU, man, they took a rough loss. They get another potentially rough outing this week against Arkansas, who may have KJ Jefferson back. Washington State, man, they had USC. They played them pretty well in the first half, and then it got away from them. They had a tough time offensively moving the ball in the second half. Still think this is a very good team, and they get Oregon State this next week, which you can't sleep on Oregon State. That's not a bad squad. So they're here at 22 with a loss. They probably end up falling out, but I still believe this is a very good Washington State team. Kentucky, no Will Levis. I'll talk more about him later in today's video. If you didn't know, I switched the stock report to Monday. So you'll see that video later today, and I'll talk about Will Levis and his walking boot. But they went down to mistake-prone Spencer Rattler and the Gamecocks. Like, that's a bad loss if you're Kentucky. And it's not like it doesn't get much easier out from here on out as they go to Mississippi State, who's coming off just a series of big wins against A&M, against Arkansas, and now they get Kentucky. Luckily, Kentucky does get this in Lexington, so we'll see. That's going to be a fun game. On to 16 through 20, got Kansas. Man, it sucks. They lost their quarterback, but they were able to stay alive in that TCU game till the end. If not for a holding call, no holding call, there was definitely a defensive hold on the I can't remember if it was a safety or the corner on that 4th down that just didn't get called. It sucks because the refs really called I thought a near perfect game until the end of that game, and TCU ends up escaping from Kansas. Again, they lost their quarterback early in the game. I'm still a huge fan of this Kansas squad. They get Oklahoma this week. Oklahoma team who's reeling off 3 really bad losses. So we'll see what happens with Kansas. Syracuse, they were off this week. I'm still, it's really rinse and repeat what I said last week. I'm not buying in to this Syracuse team just yet. They've had some good victories. They beat a very feisty Purdue team. They annihilated Louisville in the opener. But you look at it and it's like, then you go play Virginia close. And it's like, I don't know, man. I'm not sold on Syracuse being a contender just yet. Kansas State had a hard-fought win. I think it was like 10-9 against Iowa State. Iowa State's got a pretty good defense. So they move up a little bit in the rankings. And then this week, who does Kansas State have? They have a bye. They have the week off. So enjoy. Rest up. And then Mississippi State with the big win. Will Rogers leading this squad. And we're going to talk about Will Rogers later. And yeah, dude, it's great. This is great for Mississippi State. They get Kentucky, so the SEC just keeps getting tougher and tougher week in and week out. So we'll see if they get to move up a little bit in the rankings. As you saw last week, they were that team that just missed my top 25, them and LSU, though LSU has the win over Mississippi State, but then they go ahead and get smacked by Tennessee. Utah losing to another top 25 team. It sucks. It's rough. They end up losing to UCLA. They started the year with the loss against Florida, and to be fair, Florida is no longer a top 25 team, but we knew how fluky that ending was in the Utah-Florida game. This, not so much, man. They were playing catch up for a lot of this game and just couldn't quite get it done, and they're, I think, probably the best two-loss. I mean, that's hard to say because I really love Texas, but they're perhaps one of, let's go with that, one of the best two-loss teams in college football. They get a chance to redeem themselves against USC at home. So another reason why I'm gonna keep them fairly high, because they could come out and have a big win here. On to the top 15, start with TCU with the big win over Kansas. And holy moly, this offense looks so much better under Sonny Dykes. Quentin Johnston came alive, and it was just great to see. It was really great to see. They get a they have a maybe a Big 12 defining game here. Might decide who wins the Big 12 against Oklahoma State. Luckily, they get it in Fort Worth, so we'll see how that goes. NC State, not a pretty game, but they skate by, tiptoe by Florida State this past week. They only move up, I believe, just one spot here in my rankings, and they actually get Syracuse. So you have number 14 against number 19 this week. We get to see if this is, honestly, I think since Purdue, Syracuse is like first actual, like, all right, this is a legit ACC. I don't want to call them a heavyweight, but an ACC contender. Let's see what you can do. UCLA undefeated with the big win over Utah. I wasn't betting on that game. I was like, man, this is a game I want to stay away with because honestly, I like both squads. I couldn't really tell who would win. They get a nice week off for their efforts, so watch out, man. UCLA, man, they're like, hey, we for real. We ain't going nowhere. Oregon, and also another team that gets a week off, had a much easier time against Arizona. So good on Oregon. They've really rebounded after that Georgia blowout. And then Penn State, here they are, number 11. By the way, this is the watch-along game for me this week as they take on Michigan. We get to see, parts of me feels like that this Penn State team are pretenders, but we'll see. There's a lot of talent I like on that Penn State team, but I just don't trust Sean Clifford. And Sean Clifford, he's been known to have a great outing or two when you least expect it. So they get a big one against Michigan this week. They get that one at home. And then on to the top 10. Nothing's changing, really. Wake Forest, they went out. They handled business in a match that was like in a game that really wasn't hotly contested. It was, I want to say it was like VMI? Or was it an ACC showdown? No, it was Army. There we go. Man, I knew it was a military school. Golly, I was so close. So, really nothing to prove there if you're Wake Forest. However, they will have the week off, so not much will change. Oklahoma State was able to get by Texas Tech in a real shootout. They get TCU at Fort Worth. This is probably their biggest test since Baylor, which was like a week ago, but still very interesting game. Keep your eyes peeled. Tennessee, I love that they smacked LSU, but now they get to prove it against Alabama, man. This is going to be interesting. Will Bryce Young play? That's the big question, because we know that offense ain't doing diddly squat without Bryce Young. They barely got past Texas A&M this past week. So, hey, they have it in Knoxville. This is a big statement game for Tennessee to be like, hey, we're here. We're legit contenders. So, didn't move them up just quite yet. Ole Miss, they ran through Vandy. And it was hard to call that they were looking ahead, because it's not like they were looking ahead to Auburn. Auburn's not that great of a squad. But Ole Miss, it's like business as usual. Believe business will pick up, though, after this week. They get LSU, but you can't sleep on LSU. The LSU they're a middling squad, but they're not a bad squad. But they end the year off with a ringer against teams like A&M, which just has a lot of talent. You get Alabama by then. Bryce Young's probably back. Arkansas, can't sleep on Arkansas, and then Mississippi State. So you got to watch out for that. Then USC here at 6 after getting by Washington State. I think this team is the best team in the Pac-12 as it stands right now. And they get Utah this week. So this is a big game. Let's see if their boys come out as Travis Dye's playing good football. Caleb Williams is playing good football. And Jordan Addison's playing good football. And you know what? This USC team has defense. Watch out. Top 25 remains unchanged. Clemson came alive in that second half against Boston College and just railroaded them. They, I believe this week it's not terrible for Clemson as they go against Florida State. You can't sleep on Florida State this season. So they head to Tallahassee, but I'm still so tempted to bump Clemson up to 4 since, again, you have that whole conundrum of Michigan, Ohio State. Only one of those teams could go to their conference title game, which probably means the other one is on the outside looking in when it comes to the playoffs, opposed to a Georgia and Alabama who both can qualify for their conference championship game. So that's really the only thing I have with Clemson. Also, by the way, Mike Hart, get well. Former Michigan running back, former running back coach for Indiana, now for Michigan. He went down on the sideline, had to be carted off the field. So sounds like everything's going positive for him. Good to hear. Hope you get well soon, bud. We got Alabama. They had to escape by Texas A&M without their quarterback, and we saw like how vastly different like that defense or that offense was without their QB, and it wasn't great, man. It was very mistake prone. So Bryce Young, hopefully he'll be back, especially this week against Tennessee. Ohio State, there is a great reason Ohio State should probably be first, number 1 in this list. They have ran through anybody and everybody. CJ Stroud is playing like the best quarterback in the nation. I feel like no one's really on Ohio State's level right now. It's real tough because like Georgia, it's tough. Like Georgia hasn't really railed off a lot of dominant wins as of late. Georgia this week will get Vandy, so that should be a dominant outing. This past week they did destroy Auburn, but let's be honest, Auburn's kind of like a bottom feeder at this point in the SEC as of right now. Things could change, Auburn, but really, if you're like, oh no, Ohio State should be number 1, it's like, just watch in due time. We'll see. Let's go ahead, get to my Heisman contenders, and I only list out 5 of these suckers a week, so hang with me. As number 5, I got Bryce Young. The cat didn't play this week. He missed the game with that AC joint injury in the shoulder. Hopefully he's back for Tennessee. Knew he had to drop, but still, he's like literally the offense for Alabama. He means so much. Let's wait and see if he comes back before I drop him out of my top 5 contenders. And then we got the new guy, Will Rogers here. That's right. He has entered his name in the fray. I contemplated putting maybe a Jahmyr Gibbs, a Blake Corum, a Bijan Robinson, who have been like these non-quarterback guys that have just been monsters for their squad. But Will Rogers has been that for Mississippi State. He's playing outstanding football. I believe he leads, if not tied, for in college football for most touchdowns. So good on you, Will Rogers. Caleb Williams drops a spot here. He had an all right outing against Washington State, but still not looking all that impressive. But you know what he's capable of, and with a big game against Utah coming up, that when the lights are on, I expect him to shine. Right now, I think it's a runaway for these two guys in the Heisman race. Hendon Hooker. Hendon Hooker is playing phenomenal football. He railroaded LSU. Did have 2 fumbles in the game, but railroaded LSU. This cat has single-handedly revived Tennessee football. things are looking up for the Volunteers. And then number 1 is CJ Stroud. He is currently playing like the best quarterback in the nation, just routed off 6 touchdowns against Michigan State. Michigan State just stood there and took it. But Stroud, I don't think I may love, like, and this is talking draft talk, but I might love Bryce Young so much. It's really hard to deny Stroud as a top quarterback prospect right now at this point. He's playing such good football. But that's it for the video. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. And yeah, come check out the stock report later today. Until next time, you be easy, my friends. Later.